moving on to Castlevania Nocturne. We've gone on so many tangents in that Fiona and Cake section.
Right.
But yeah, oops, I made a mistake muting myself. So you've seen it all.
Yes.
Um, yeah, before we talked about the villain, spoiler alert, obviously we're gonna spoil everything. Um,
Yeah.
Before we talked about the villains not being as interesting as they were in the OG, but the one villain that was interesting all throughout was Olrox, the Aztec
Yes.
vampire who killed Richter's mother and sent him running away in fear. Um, and like we talked about before, that scene when he first met Mizrak was some of the gayest stuff I've ever seen in my
Oh
entire life.
yeah. Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and of course, it's weird how I fail to realize that some people just don't pick up on gay subtext.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Because a lot of people were surprised when they cut to the scene of them in bed together. And I'm like, duh, what did you think was gonna happen?
Like, did we watch the same thing?
He
Like their first
literally,
meeting? Hello.
All Rocks literally says we should do this again sometime, somewhere more private. Like there was
And
barely any subtext there. It was
no, for
overtext.
real. Overtext is crazy. It reminds me of a friend of mine is in a class about that, like queer studies in game design and whatnot, and he did like a whole like essay citation on uh the bit "this is like gay sex to me," and I should have told him to cite that bit also. There was like it was like a he did a line from Baldur's Gate in the Dark Urge path, and then a panel from Trigun Maximum about it, and it's just like the more like he tells me about this class, the more like gay subtext I see in things, and not even like beyond oh like LOL this is like gay sex to me like in a joking way. Like I sometimes I really look at stuff and I'm like, there's no way that this wasn't intended to be a little fruity, you know?
Yeah, it'd be like that sometimes.
Definitely do.
Um,
Definitely do.
you know, but going back to Richter running away. There's a lot of hate being thrown at a net online. And I made a Reddit post about it in the Castlevania subreddit. And I'm gonna read it in full because I just feel
Okay.
like this is just something we've got to talk about. Um, Let me open it up. So the title of it is "You All Lack Empathy for Annette." Um, I see a lot of hate being thrown toward Annette. Some of it racism and sexism, but a lot of it comes from a lack of empathy for her plight. Oftentimes, when a character, most often a woman, treats the protagonist badly due to heightened state of emotions, people dogpile on them with hate without once considering the nuances of the situation. Annette's best friend was killed due to her anger, and then she found out he was turned into a night creature. And while in the process of potentially saving him, one of her allies ran away. Yes, he had a good reason, kinda, but logic rarely dictates our feelings. Plus, as she explains, he she could never afford to run from her fears as a slave, so she sees it as weakness.
Right.
And I know what you're thinking. Well, it was her anger that led to Edouard's death. Why is she still letting that anger continue to inhibit her? Since when was it that easy to break a bad habit? Since when could a person
Right.
instantly let go of anger issues? Anger issues birthed by slavery. And
And that's
ultimately,
my biggest thing. It's like if it were anger issues from like any other source, I would at least kind of understand it. It's like yeah, let that shit go. Slavery.
and
Like
her
she
mother
was a
was murdered.
slave, and her mother was like it's
and, and
asinine.
ultimately,
Honestly.
she learns from her teacher that Richter running from fear isn't that different from when she ran away from her oppressors. And it's only his first step to freedom from that fear. And she also tells
Right.
her that anger isn't her true power, it's her ancestors, because she literally gets powers from her ancestors.
From her ancestors,
So
right?
when Richter returns and apologizes, because he understands how selfish running away was and leaving his allies to potentially die against these extremely powerful vampires, she admits that she was also just worried about him. Let's foster some media literacy, okay? And let me find
Please.
this one. I gotta find this one comment where the person like gets so close to figuring out the point, and
Oh, that's
then
always horrible when it's like you're right there.
fails. But he gets so close to figuring out the arc of her character, and it was so annoying because they essentially say something along the lines of start talking about her anger and how her anger is driving everything she does. And then I'm like, you're so close. You're so close to realizing
Almost
that
had it.
her story arc is that she's always angry and she needs to learn how to not let her anger control her. That's the point. That's the arc. You're literally
That's
stopping
the
short.
whole bit.
You're literally saying all of the negative parts about it and then stopping short of realizing that they're supposed to be negative because she's supposed to learn from them. People will
Right.
go out of their way to ignore subtext, like I said, and empathy. They'll have all the empathy in the world for the main white dude who who in reality, sure, he was scared, but he ran away and left his cousins there to potentially die and be murdered
Right.
by Orox
Right.
and Drolta. Like,
Right.
come on.
My boy. And okay, a controversial opinion, or it might not be controversial, but like I didn't really care for Richter as much
See,
as
and that's
his
a big
character.
criticism of the show for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, they hate that they like that he didn't get as much attention. But honestly, I liked Richter in this. I didn't like him as much as Annette. Annette was great. Of course, she
Yeah,
definitely
and that
got
was I.
a lot more attention than Richter, and a lot of people don't like that. I'm like, it's not that deep.
Yeah.
Like Richter got enough. Um, like all of that led to Richter meeting just his grandfather, which I was not
Yeah.
expecting.
My favorite Belmont. Love me some Juiced. Play Harmony of Dissonance.
Yeah.
Get the Advanced Collection and play it. That game is fantastic. And people say the soundtrack sucks. That's not true. You guys are just spoiled on other Castlevania soundtracks. It's good in its own right. Anyway.
Yeah, here he learns that the reason he lost his powers because he lost what fueled them, love. But he realizes that he now has people he loves and wants to protect again. And we hear an amazing rendition of Divine Bloodlines. And just the music overall of this season was really good, especially
It was really
Edward singing. The soundtrack has come out since, and it's so good. I've listened to it and listened to all of the songs with the Edward singing. I forget the name of the actor who plays him, but he also does the singing. It's so good. I can only assume we'll get more Juice next season, and he'll actually get his powers back either because he loves his grandson, or he's probably gonna get them back because of his love for his grandson, and then he's probably gonna die protecting Richter. If I'm being honest, I feel like the writing's on the wall for that man. He's just over it.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah,
Especially to begin with.
yeah, the finale was insane. So
Oh yeah.
let me ask you, how do you feel about Maria now learning what you've learned about her character and how she relates to everything? Because I feel like, I mean, it's more about her and her entire family, and her arc really, is supported by all of them rather than her by herself.
Right. I don't know. I got mixed feelings. Still got mixed feelings about Maria. I have since the beginning because it's like she's cool. She's cool. The finale definitely mixed those feelings a lot more, but it's like I don't know. I'm just gonna see more of her.
Yeah,
Probably play
I thought it
the
was
game more.
so obvious that the what was he, a pastor, a father, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was clear that he was her father. Like I
Right,
saw that
right.
man's face, saw his eyes, saw his hair. I was like, oh, that's her father.
And that's why he goes so hard in the paint about wanting her to be on his side.
Yeah, but Tara, her Maria's mother, being the ram in this proverbial sacrifice, was godlike writing. No pun intended.
True.
It was insane. I was like, that was so clever. He was just like, "Where's my ram, Tara? Where is it?" And she's like, "I'm the ram." And I'm excited to see how they handle that next season with Tara being a vampire. That's gonna be very interesting. And the whole series, I was just waiting for Alucard to show up, and his arrival did not disappoint. Too bad it had to result in the death of a bad bitch. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
unfortunate.
it's so unfortunate.
But the reality
I could've
was,
fixed her.
Richter was putting
That's all I'm
hands on
saying.
her.
Yeah.
Richter was putting hands on her. He really,
Yeah.
he straight put the whip down and just started making gauntlets out of ice and just started beating people up. What is up with
so
what is
real
up
for
with
that, though.
these Belmont men and wanting to throw hands with monsters?
I
Because
would
at
throw hands
least
with a monster
at least
too.
Richter has the power to do it. Trevor was just bare hands, no extra powers, just punching vampires and
it worked.
night creatures.
It worked.
But yeah,
It's like the whip is fine. Like, Vampire Killer is fine. But it's like you can't tell me it wouldn't be satisfying to like bare knuckle a night creature to death. Like that, I feel like that would feel like cocaine to me.
Yeah.
To me personally.
Speaking of which, I couldn't help but imagine what a video game where you play as this version of Richter, Maria, Annette, and Alucard would be like. So I'm imagining the combat of Devil May Cry 5 with the ATB system of Final Fantasy 7 with the map design of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So walk with me. In Devil May Cry 5, there's a character named V who fights in a similar fashion to Maria, where with summoned animals. He uses a bird for long range and a panther for close quarters combat. So you already got those things from Maria with V, where she could pretty much play exactly like V does. And naturally, Richter would be more like Dante, who has a bunch of different weapons and different stances. I would give Richter the ability to switch between his fist, his sword, and his whip. And also, he would have daggers as his projectile weapon. And his stances would be the three elements that he uses: fire, ice, and lightning, where you can switch between all three of them. With lightning being more defensive, ice being more defensive, blocking enemy attacks and freezing them, as well as creating shields for your allies. And fire being more offensive, of course, in the most obvious ways. And lightning increasing your speed and allowing you to stun enemies and make parrying easier. And he would also have elemental projectiles that function on a recharge, like fireballs, ice spears, bolts of lightning that bounce between enemies. And for a Final Fantasy element, the ATB system, ATB stands for Active Time Battle, and it allows players to control up to 3 party members simultaneously by either issuing commands remotely or being able to switch between them in the middle of combat. So I'm just like, Konami, make another Castlevania game, please. I have ideas.
Yeah, please.
I think I talked about my idea for a Castlevania game starring Simon before, but I've worked more on it since then. And just to talk about it real quick, it's the castle would teleport and land near this village, and the map would be, and Simon comes of course to protect the people. And the map would take place. It would be in the village, the forest surrounding the village, and the castle. The castle would be like 40% of the map.
Right. And
then the other 60% would be the village and the forest. And in the forest, there would be like underground catacombs and stuff like that.
Cool stuff.
And, of course, it would be a 3D Metroidvania. So, you have to go through the castle and you have to get certain items and upgrades to, progress or like unlock shortcuts and stuff. And some of the stuff you need to get to unlock and progress in the castle will be outside the castle in the forest. And so what I've come up with further is that you're going to be wandering castle, and occasionally you're going to see this big, tall vampire dude. You're going to see Dracula just in the background, casually walking around, going through the library, chilling. Like, I don't care that you're here because I'm Dracula. Like, what are you going to do to me? But then when you fight him at one point, and then he just disappears in like a puff of smoke. And then when you finally get to the final boss, it's Alucard.
Ooh.
Who is like, I'm tired, bro. I've been out here fighting vampires and my revived father for centuries. I'm just tired, bro. And and he's like, I'm here to test you to see if the Belmonts are powerful enough to handle this without me. So you fight him, you defeat him, and you think you killed him, but really he just went to go live a peaceful life. And that's the game. Come on, hire me, Konami. Come on, do something.
Love it.
But that's all I got about Castlevania. You don't have anything. I mean, I'm excited for season 2. Alucard's back,
same.
new design. He's paler than he was before.
He stopped going outside. I don't blame him. I was gonna say at the end of things,
he was low-key sparkling like the vampires in Twilight.
Which is really funny to me. But yeah, when you were describing like this idea that you had for like Castlevania game with the current cast of this Castlevania Nocturne, all I could think of is
I forgot to mention
Terraria party.
Annette, but obviously she makes weapons out of metal and she can control metal, and she would use earth and rocks. She would be like Earthbender. I forgot to mention her, but go ahead.
Straightforward. Yeah, they're just a Terraria party at the end of the day. Like if you really think about it.
Yeah, basically classic RPG stuff.
Yeah. But that's all I've got.